I don't date black women, the Korean Mafia boss said, until she walked in and stole his heart part two. The villa in Bali was paradise carved from stone and tropical wood, perched on a cliff overlooking the Indian Ocean. Azure waters stretched to the horizon. Palm trees swayed in the warm breeze, and the only sounds were crashing waves and distant bird calls. For the first time in his adult life, Junwoo Park felt completely at peace. He stood on the private terrace watching Cheryl emerge from the infinity pool, water cascading off her skin, her laughter bright and unguarded. She was his wife now. The words still felt miraculous on his tongue. "Stop staring and come swim with me," she called, wringing out her hair. "I'm admiring my wife." "It's allowed. You've been admiring for 3 days straight. I'm starting to think you married me just to stare." Junwoo crossed the terrace and pulled her close, not caring that she was soaking his linen shirt. "I married you for many reasons. The view is just a bonus." She kissed him, tasting of salt and coconut sunscreen, and he forgot about Seoul, the syndicate, the judgmental whispers. Here, they were just Junwoo and Cheryl, newlyweds drunk on love and tropical sun. That evening, the villa staff prepared a private dinner on the beach. Torches flickered in the sand, creating pools of golden light. A table for two sat at the water's edge, waves lapping inches from their feet. The menu was perfection: fresh lobster, grilled fish, tropical fruits that tasted like sunshine. "I could stay here forever," Cheryl said, her hand finding his across the table. "Just you, me, and no one else's opinions." "We could," Junwoo replied. "I could have Sangwoo run things remotely. We become beach hermits. You'd be bored in a week. With you? Never." She smiled, but something flickered in her eyes, a shadow that made Junwoo's instincts sharpen. He'd survived this long by reading micro-expressions, by sensing danger before it arrived. His hand moved subtly to the small knife he'd concealed in his waistband. Even on honeymoon, some habits died hard. "Junwoo," Cheryl noticed the change in his posture. "What's wrong?" "The staff member behind you. The one refilling water glasses. He's not moving like the others." Cheryl's expression didn't change, but her body tensed. "What do we do?" "On three, drop onto the table." "One," the waiter lunged, producing a pistol from beneath his serving tray. Junwoo moved faster, flipping the table onto its side as the first shot cracked through the tropical night. Cheryl dropped into the sand as he'd instructed, her evening gown billowing around her. More men emerged from the tree-line. 4, 5, 6 of them. Professional, armed. This wasn't random violence. This was an organized hit. Junwoo's mind shifted into the cold calculation that had kept him alive through 20 years in the underworld. He grabbed Cheryl's hand. The rocks. Now. They ran, bullets kicking up sand around their feet. Junwoo used his body to shield her, feeling one round tear through his shoulder, pain, but not incapacitating. They reached the volcanic rocks that jutted from the beach and scrambled behind them. "You're shot." Cheryl's hands were already on his shoulder, assessing the wound with surprising calm. Flesh wound. "Listen to me." Another volley of gunfire forced them lower. "There's a path through these rocks that leads to the service road. The villa manager showed me during the security walkthrough." "You did a security walkthrough on our honeymoon?" "Old habits." He checked his knife, laughably inadequate against 6 armed men. "Can you run?" "Yes, but Junwoo, no arguments. When I move, you follow exactly where I step. Understand?" She nodded, and he saw not fear in her eyes, but fierce determination. His brilliant, unbreakable wife. Junwoo waited for the reload. There, the brief pause and gunfire. He exploded from cover, pulling Cheryl behind him through the maze of rocks. Bullets ricocheted off stone, sparks flying in the darkness. His shoulder screamed, but he didn't slow. They reached the path, narrow, treacherous, barely visible in the moonlight. Behind them, their attackers scrambled over the rocks in pursuit. "Who are they?" Cheryl gasped as they ran. "Rival syndicate. They think I'm vulnerable now." They're wrong. The path opened onto the service road where their rental car sat. Junwoo had insisted on having an escape route. Even here, even on honeymoon. Paranoia had saved their lives. He threw Cheryl into the passenger seat and gunned the engine as bullets shattered the rear window. The car fishtailed on the gravel before finding traction. In the rearview mirror, Their attackers grew smaller. Cheryl was on her phone, speaking rapid Korean to their villa security. Blood from his shoulder stained the white leather seats. The paradise they'd built over 3 days lay shattered on that beach. "We need to get you to a hospital," Cheryl said, still impossibly calm. "Airport first. We're leaving Bali tonight." She looked at him, really looked at him, seeing perhaps for the first time the full reality of the man she'd married. Not the corporate tycoon or the reformed lover, but the mafia boss who had survived countless attempts on his life. "This is your world," she said quietly. "This is what I signed up for. If you want to, don't." Her hand covered his on the gear shift. "Don't you dare suggest I leave. They came after us, Junwoo. After our honeymoon. I'm not running from this. I'm not running from you." Something in his chest cracked open. He'd expected fear, regret, second thoughts. Instead, she was choosing him, all of him, even the violent parts. "I will find everyone responsible for this," he said, his voice dropping into the dangerous register that made enemies reconsider their choices. "I will make them regret that they were ever born." "I know," Cheryl squeezed his hand, "and I'll help you do it." As they raced through the Balinese night toward the airport, Junwoo realized something profound. Marriage hadn't made him weaker. Having Cheryl beside him, matching his strength with her own, refusing to break under pressure, it made him unstoppable. The honeymoon was over, but the real partnership was just beginning. 2 months passed. Seoul welcomed them back with deceptive calm. Junwoo had his people investigate the Bali attack. The trail led to a coalition of smaller syndicates tried to exploit what they perceived as his distraction. He dealt with them quietly, efficiently, leaving messages written in blood for anyone else considering similar moves. Cheryl had returned to work at Bennett Global, refusing to let fear dictate her life. If anything, the attack had hardened her resolve. She moved through Seoul with the same confidence as before, though Junwoo had tripled her security detail. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything shattered again. Junwoo sat in a strategy meeting with his lieutenants when Sang-woo's phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read the message, and Junwoo knew, instantly, viscerally, that something was catastrophically wrong. "What is it?" Junwoo demanded. Sang-woo's voice was hollow. "Cheryl's security team just reported in. She never came out of her meeting at the Day One building in Gangnam. They went inside and found her driver unconscious. She's gone." The room tilted. Junwoo's vision narrowed to a single point of rage so pure it felt like ice in his veins. Gone. Taken. Professional job. They disabled building security, used a service entrance. It was coordinated. Junwoo's phone buzzed. An unknown number. A video file. His hands shook as he opened it. The first time they'd trembled in 20 years. Cheryl sat in a metal chair in what looked like an empty warehouse. Her lip was split, a bruise darkening her left cheekbone. But her eyes, those fierce, intelligent eyes, burned with defiance, not fear. Behind her stood masked men with weapons. A distorted voice spoke. "Junwoo Park, you have 48 hours to transfer control of your Busan operations and pay 50 billion won. Otherwise, your wife dies. We'll send you pieces of her to help you decide." The video ended with Cheryl looking directly into the camera. Her lips moved silently, and Junwoo rewound it, enhanced it, read her lips. Asterisk, "I'm okay. Find me." Asterisk. The phone in his hand cracked under the pressure of his grip. "Boss," Sang-woo began. No, Junwoo stood, and everyone in the room instinctively stepped back from the violence radiating off him. "Get every asset we have on the street. Call in every favor, every debt, every piece of leverage we hold over anyone in this city. I want locations of every warehouse, every abandoned building, every possible holding site within 100 kilometers of Seoul. That's hundreds of..." Then we check hundreds. His voice could have frozen hell itself. "Contact the Jade Serpent Triad, the Yakuza connections in Busan, even the Russians if we have to. Someone saw something. Someone knows something. And when I find out who," he paused, his smile promising horrors, "they'll beg me for death long before I grant it." The room emptied as his men scattered to execute his orders. Only Sang-woo remained. "There's something else," his lieutenant said carefully. "We identified one of the masked men from the video. He works for the Kim family syndicate. But boss, the Kims don't have the resources for this kind of operation. Someone's backing them. Who? We're not sure yet, but there are rumors. Ji-yoon has been seen meeting with Kim family leadership. Ji-yoon, his ex-girlfriend, the woman he'd humiliated at the gala. Rage mixed with something colder, calculation. She'd been waiting, planning, gathering allies for revenge. Find her, Junwoo said. Now. The next 36 hours were a blur of violence and interrogation. Junwoo tore through Seoul's underworld like a force of nature. His reputation as the Black Dragon had never seemed more. Apartment men who'd served him for years had never seen him like this. Utterly unleashed, every restraint burned away by the need to find his wife. By hour 40, they had a location, an abandoned textile factory in Incheon, near the port. Satellite surveillance confirmed activity. Heat signatures showed at least 8 people inside. Junwoo assembled his team, 15 of his best men, armed and ready. But as they prepared to move, Sang-woo pulled him aside. Boss, this could be a trap. We should send an advance team. No, Junwoo checked his weapon with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Every second she's in there is a second too long. We go now. We go hard. And we don't leave anyone breathing. They arrived at the factory as dawn broke over Incheon, the rising sun painting the industrial wasteland in shades of red and gold. Junwoo's team moved with military precision, surrounding the building, cutting off escape routes. He kicked in a main door, weapon raised, prepared for a firefight. What he found instead stopped him cold. 2 of the kidnappers lay unconscious on the floor. A third sat against the wall, his nose clearly broken, groaning in pain. The metal chair Cheryl had been tied to was overturned, zip ties cut and discarded. And in the corner, Cheryl stood with a piece of rebar in her hands, facing down 2 remaining captors. Her designer blouse was torn, her face bruised, but she looked absolutely magnificent, furious and unbroken. Stay back, one of the kidnappers shouted, seeing Junwoo's team flood in. He grabbed for Cheryl, trying to use her as a shield. She spun with surprising speed and drove the rebar into his knee. He dropped, screaming. The last kidnapper raised his weapon, but Junwoo was faster. A single shot, center mass. The man fell. Silence. Cheryl dropped the rebar, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. You're late, she said, and then her legs buckled. Junwoo caught her before she hit the ground, dropping his weapon to cradle her against his chest. I've got you. I've got you. I knew you'd come, she whispered. I just got tired of waiting. He buried his face in her hair, his whole body shaking with relief and residual terror. You freed yourself. Learn from the best. She pulled back to look at him, and he saw tears tracking through the dirt on her face. But I'm really glad you showed up when you did. I was running out of tough girl energy. Sang-woo cleared his throat. Boss, we need to secure the area and handle it, Junwoo said without looking away from Cheryl. Get her a medic. Now. As his team secured the factory and called in cleaners for the bodies, Junwoo held his wife and felt something shift in his chest. She hadn't waited passively for rescue. She'd fought, adapted, survived. There's something you need to know, Cheryl said as the medic checked her injuries. Ji-yoon was here. She's the one who orchestrated this. She left about an hour ago, said she was going to watch you crumble from a safe distance. Junwoo's expression went cold. She won't be safe for long. The week after the rescue was a haze of medical checkups, police statements carefully crafted to obscure syndicate involvement, and Junwoo's methodical dismantling of everyone connected to the kidnapping. Ji-yoon had fled to Japan, but Junwoo had connections everywhere. She would face justice, his kind of justice, soon enough. But first, Cheryl needed rest. She'd insisted on returning to work after 3 days, stubborn as always, refusing to let fear control her life. Junwoo had argued, but eventually relented. He understood the need to reclaim normalcy after trauma. He'd lived it himself countless times. It was during a routine morning at their Hanamdong penthouse that everything changed again. Cheryl emerged from the bathroom looking pale, one hand pressed to her stomach. Junwoo was immediately on his feet, his protective instincts flaring. What's wrong? Are you in pain? Is it from the kidnapping? I'm fine, she said, but her voice wavered. I've been feeling off for a few days. Nauseous in the mornings. Tired. I thought it was stress from everything, but She held up something small in her trembling hand. A pregnancy test. Positive. Junwoo's mind went completely blank. He stared at the two pink lines as if they were written in a language he didn't understand. Say something, Cheryl whispered. You're pregnant. The words felt surreal in his mouth. I think it happened in Bali, before the attack, which means her voice broke. I was pregnant during the kidnapping. When they hit me, when I fought them, oh God, what if I hurt? Junwoo crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. No, don't go there. We're calling the doctor right now. We'll get you checked. Everything will be fine. But his own mind was racing with horrifying what-ifs. She'd been tied to a chair, struck, had fought her way free with a piece of rebar while carrying his child. The guilt threatened to choke him. Dr. Kim arrived within the hour, a discreet physician who'd treated Junwoo's injuries over the years and knew when to keep silent. She performed an ultrasound right there in their bedroom, her expression focused and professional. There, she said, pointing to the screen. Heartbeat is strong. Everything looks normal. You're approximately 8 weeks along. The sound filled the room, a rapid flutter like hummingbird wings. Junwoo stared at the grainy image on the screen, at the tiny blob that was somehow his child, and felt his entire world tilt on its axis. The baby's okay? Cheryl asked, tears streaming down her face. Perfectly healthy. You were very lucky, Mrs. Park, given what you went through. But babies are resilient. This one's a fighter, just like their mother. After the doctor left, Junwoo and Cheryl sat on their bed in stunned silence, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. We're having a baby, she said wonderingly. We're having a baby, he repeated, and then the reality crashed over him like a tidal wave. Joy, terror, overwhelming love for someone he hadn't even met yet. Cheryl, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a father. My own father was nothing like you, she interrupted firmly. You're not your father, Junwoo. You're not your past. You're the man who crossed an entire city to find me. The man who's changing for love. That's the father our child will know. He pulled her close, his hand joining hers on her stomach. I'm terrified. Good. That means you already care. She kissed his temple. We'll figure out together. Like everything else. But even as they held each other, celebrating this unexpected miracle, Junwoo's mind was already calculating threats. A child made him vulnerable in ways he'd never been before. Every enemy he'd made over 20 years would see this baby as leverage, as a weakness to exploit. We can't tell anyone yet, he said suddenly. Not for a few months. Not until we're sure it's safe. Cheryl pulled back to study his face. You're thinking about security. I'm always thinking about security. But now, he touched her stomach again with infinite gentleness. Now, I have 2 people to protect. The 2 most important people in my world. 3, she corrected with a small smile. Don't forget yourself. I need you alive and intact, Mr. Park. Over the following weeks, they prepared in secret. Junwoo had the penthouse security system completely overhauled. He assigned Sang-woo to personally vet every staff member who had access to their home. He researched pediatricians, hospitals, read books on pregnancy and child development with the same intensity he'd once studied enemy movements. Cheryl watched him with amusement and affection. You're going to be that dad who bubble wraps the entire house, aren't you? Absolutely. She was 3 months along when the morning sickness finally eased. For months when they found out they were having a daughter. Junwoo cried in the ultrasound room, holding Cheryl's hand, watching their baby girl move on the screen. A daughter, he whispered. I'm going to have a daughter. You're going to be so wrapped around her tiny finger, Cheryl teased, but her own eyes were wet. He thought about the world he'd bring her into, still imperfect, still full of people like his old self who judged based on skin color, who saw difference as threat rather than beauty. The thought of anyone treating his daughter the way he'd once dismissed women who looked like Cheryl made rage and shame war in his chest. I'll burn down anyone who hurts her, he said fiercely. I know, but let's also teach her to fight her own battles, to be strong like her mother, strategic like her father. Deal. They told only their closest circle, Cheryl's parents via video call, her mother sobbed with joy, Sang-woo, who smiled for the first time in years, and eventually Min-jun, who placed a wrinkled hand on Cheryl's stomach and murmured a blessing. But secrets in Seoul's underworld never stayed secret for long. By month 5, whispers had begun. By month 6, everyone knew. And Jun Woo's enemies began to circle once more, sensing opportunity in his greatest vulnerability. The storm was gathering. But this time, he wouldn't face it alone. The news of Cheryl's pregnancy spread through Seoul's underworld like wildfire. At 7 months, she could no longer hide the curve of her belly beneath designer clothes. Photos of them appeared in society magazines. The controversial couple now expecting a child. The reactions range from genuine congratulations to thinly veiled disgust. But the most dangerous reaction came from those who saw opportunity. The envelope arrived at Jun Woo's office on a cold February morning. No return address. Inside, a single photograph of Cheryl leaving her doctor's appointment, a red circle drawn around her pregnant stomach, and a note written in precise Korean calligraphy. Asterisk. Everything you've built or everyone you love. Choose wisely. You have 72 hours. Asterisk. Jun Woo's hand crushed the paper. Sang-woo stood across from him, his expression grim. It's not just one group, Sang-woo reported. Intelligence suggests a coalition. The remnants of the Kim family syndicate, 2 rival organizations from Busan, and several conservative business families who've never accepted your choices. They've pooled resources. This is bigger than anything we've faced. How big? If you refuse their ultimatum, they're threatening simultaneous attacks. Your legitimate businesses, your syndicate operations, and Sang-woo hesitated. They've made it clear Cheryl and the baby are primary targets. They know that's where you're most vulnerable. Jun Woo stood and walked to his window overlooking Seoul, the city he'd conquered, controlled, rebuilt in his image. 20 years of blood and sacrifice. His empire. And then he thought of Cheryl that morning, singing softly to their daughter while making breakfast, her hand unconsciously rubbing her belly. He thought of the nursery they'd been secretly preparing, painted soft yellow with a mobile of stars and moons. He thought of their daughter's heartbeat on the ultrasound, that fierce flutter of life. Call a meeting, he said. All the elders, every lieutenant. I want everyone in the main conference room in 2 hours. The room was packed when Jun Woo entered. 30 men who'd served the Geometry-Long Syndicate for decades, who'd built their lives on its power and profits. He saw calculation in their eyes, concern, and in some cases, barely hidden judgment. Min Jun stood at the head of the table. We've all seen the ultimatum. The coalition is serious. They have the resources to make good on their threats. What do they want specifically? Asked one of the younger lieutenants. Complete dissolution of my control, Jun Woo said flatly. Transfer of all Busan operations, 50 billion won in liquid assets, and my public withdrawal from the syndicate leadership. They want me broken, humiliated, removed. And if you refuse? Another elder asked, though everyone knew the answer. They'll come after my family, my pregnant wife, my unborn daughter. Jun Woo's voice was ice. They believe threatening them gives them leverage over me. Silence fell. Even these hardened criminals understood the gravity of threatening a man's family, especially Jun Woo's family. Elder Kim Dong-hyun cleared his throat. Perhaps negotiation is wise. You could step back temporarily, let someone else manage operations until the child is born and safe. Then rebuild your position. You're suggesting I surrender. Jun Woo's eyes locked on the old man. I'm suggesting pragmatism. You're emotional, understandably so. Your wife is pregnant. Emotion clouds judgment. Maybe the coalition is right that you've become distracted, vulnerable. The room held its breath. Several elders nodded agreement. The old prejudices rising again. The suggestion that Cheryl, that his love for her, had made him weak. Jun Woo smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression anyone in that room had ever seen. You think I'm vulnerable? He walked slowly around the table, each word measured and lethal. You think because I love my wife, because I'm about to become a father, that I've gone soft? Let me correct that misconception right now. He pulled up security footage on the main screen. Images of the coalition members, their locations, their families, their assets. Information his people had compiled over the past 72 hours. I know where each of them sleeps. I know their children's schools, their mistresses' apartments, their offshore accounts. I know every business they own, every politician they've bribed, every crime they've committed. His voice dropped dangerously low. And if they think threatening my family gives them power over me, they've fundamentally misunderstood who I am. He turned to face the room. I didn't build this empire by backing down from threats. I built it by being more ruthless, more strategic, and more willing to do what's necessary than anyone else. That hasn't changed. If anything, having something real to protect has made me more dangerous, not less. Sang-woo pulled up another screen, detailed attack plans, coordinated strikes, financial warfare strategies. We hit them tonight, Jun-woo continued. Simultaneously, every major asset they have. We expose their illegal operations to authorities we control. We turn their allies against them with better offers. We systematically dismantle everything they've built while they're still waiting for my surrender. That's total war, Min Jun said quietly. Bodies will pile up. Police attention will increase. This kind of operation is exactly what they should have expected when they threatened my family. Jun Woo's eyes blazed. I gave them the benefit of mercy once. I let smaller threats slide because I was trying to change to be better for Cheryl. But they mistook mercy for weakness. That ends now. He looked at each man in turn. Anyone who thinks I should negotiate, who thinks I should give ground to protect my family, you're free to leave this organization right now. I'll even give you a generous severance. But if you stay, you commit to total victory. No half measures. No retreat. Not a single person moved. The coalition thinks they can use my love against me, Jun-woo said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. They're about to learn that it's the most dangerous weapon I've ever had. Because now I'm not just fighting for power or territory. I'm fighting for my wife, my daughter, my future. And I will burn their entire world to ash before I let them touch what's mine. Elder Kim bowed his head. Forgive my doubt. What are your orders? Jun-woo began outlining the operation. Surgical, brutal, comprehensive. By the time he finished, even the most hardened syndicate veterans looked impressed and slightly terrified. As the room emptied to execute his commands, only Sang-woo remained. This will change everything, his lieutenant said. After tonight, there's no going back. Good. Jun-woo pulled up a photo of Cheryl on his phone, her hand on her belly, smiling at the camera. I'm done living in the shadows of other people's expectations. My daughter will inherit a world that respects her father not because he compromised, but because he was strong enough to protect what mattered. That night, Seoul's underworld erupted. Coordinated raids hit coalition assets across the city. Bank accounts were frozen. Blackmail material was released to media. Key lieutenants were arrested by police who suddenly had detailed evidence of crimes. Warehouses burned. Safe houses were raided. By dawn, the coalition was in shambles. And Junwoo Park stood in his penthouse, watching the sun rise over Seoul, his hand resting on Cheryl's sleeping form beside him, knowing he'd just declared himself more powerful and more dangerous than ever. His enemies had tried to use his family as a weakness. Instead, they'd unleashed something far more terrifying, a man with everything to lose and nothing he wouldn't do to protect it. 3 weeks after the coalition's destruction, Seoul's underworld had learned a definitive lesson. Never threaten Junwoo Park's family. The remnants of the rival syndicates had either pledged loyalty or fled the country. Ji-yoon had been found in Osaka and quietly disappeared. Junwoo never told Cheryl the details, and she never asked. Now, at 38 weeks pregnant, Cheryl moved through their penthouse like a ship in full sail, one hand perpetually on her lower back, the other resting on her enormous belly. I'm done, she announced, waddling into the living room where Junwoo was reviewing legitimate business contracts. He'd been slowly transitioning to legal enterprises, keeping his promise to build a better world for their daughter. Completely done. This baby needs to vacate the premises immediately. Junwoo smiled, setting aside his work. The doctor said any day now. Any day now has been the forecast for 2 weeks. I can't see my feet. I can't sleep. And your daughter, she poked her belly accusingly, keeps using my bladder as a soccer ball. Our daughter, he corrected, pulling Cheryl carefully onto the couch beside him. And she's just practicing her fighting skills. Takes after her mother. Cheryl laughed, then winced. Oh, that was different. Junwoo was on his feet instantly. Different how? Pain? Should I call Dr. Kim? Junwoo, relax. It's probably just she stopped, her eyes going wide. Okay, That was definitely a contraction. The color drained from his face. We're going to the hospital. Now. We have time. First baby's take. Her water broke, soaking the expensive Italian leather couch. Now, Jun Woo repeated, his voice pitching higher than she'd ever heard it. We're going right now. The drive to Seoul Medical Center was a blur. Sang Woo drove while Jun Woo sat in the back with Cheryl, holding her hand through contractions, looking more terrified than he'd ever looked facing armed enemies. You're crushing my hand, Cheryl gasped. Sorry. He loosened his grip, then tightened it again when another contraction hit. You're doing amazing. So amazing. I love you so much. Tell me that when this is over, and I'll believe you. The hospital staff had been prepared. Jun Woo had paid for the entire private maternity floor. Dr. Kim met them at the entrance with a wheelchair and a knowing smile. Ready to meet your daughter? She asked. No, Jun Woo said honestly. But I don't think we have a choice. The labor was long. 14 hours of Cheryl's hand breaking his fingers, of her cursing him in English and Korean, of his helpless apologies and whispered encouragement. He stayed by her side every moment, wiping her forehead, feeding her ice chips, looking more devastated by her pain than he'd ever been by his own injuries. I can't do this anymore, Cheryl sobbed during hour 12. I can't. It's too much. You can, Jun Woo said fiercely, his own eyes wet. You're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived a kidnapping. You saved yourself. You can do this. Easy for you to say, you're not. Another contraction cut her off. Finally, as dawn broke over Seoul, Dr. Kim said the words, it's time to push. 10 minutes later, their daughter entered the world, screaming her fury at the indignity of birth. Dr. Kim placed the tiny, perfect bundle on Cheryl's chest, and time stopped. She's here, Cheryl whispered, tears streaming down her exhausted face. Our baby girl is here. Jun Woo couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He stared at the tiny face, scrunched and red, her small fists waving indignantly. She had Cheryl's nose, his dark eyes, and a head of thick black hair. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. When Dr. Kim asked if he wanted to cut the umbilical cord, his hand shook so badly Cheryl laughed through her tears. I've seen you handle weapons without flinching, she teased. This is scarier, he admitted. Later, when Cheryl dozed and the baby, Jimin, they decided, meaning wisdom and cleverness, lay in his arms. Jun Woo finally allowed himself to fall apart. Silent tears ran down his face as he studied every detail of his daughter. Her miniature fingernails, the way she yawned, the weight of her impossibly small body. I'm your father, he whispered, and I promise that I will spend every day of my life making sure you never face the prejudice I once held, that you grow up knowing you're loved exactly as you are, that you're safe, cherished, protected. A gentle knock on the door. Sang Woo entered quietly, followed by Min Jun, both men carrying flowers and wearing expressions of wonder. May we? Min Jun asked. Jun Woo nodded. The old man approached, peering at the baby with ancient eyes that had seen too much violence, too much hate. Then he did something Jun Woo had never witnessed. Min Jun cried. She's perfect, the consigliera said. Forgive me, Jun Woo. Forgive an old fool who almost missed witnessing this miracle because of outdated beliefs. You're here now, Jun Woo said. That's what matters. Over the next hours, the hospital room filled with their unlikely family. Cheryl's parents arrived from Atlanta, her mother weeping and hugging everyone. Several Reformed Syndicate elders came to pay respects, bringing traditional gifts and bowing to the baby. Even some of Cheryl's business colleagues stopped by, their earlier judgment replaced by genuine happiness. The photos hit Korean media within hours, the controversial couple with their newborn daughter. The reactions were mixed. Some conservative outlets still criticized, but increasingly, the narrative was shifting. Young Koreans especially embraced the family as a symbol of changing times. That evening, alone again with his wife and daughter, Jun Woo sat by Cheryl's hospital bed and watched them both sleep. His empire was secure. His enemies were defeated. His family was safe and whole. I used to think love made you weak, he whispered to his sleeping daughter. Your mother taught me that love makes you invincible. Thank you for choosing us, Jimin. We'll spend our lives being worthy of you. Cheryl's hand found his in the darkness. We already are, she murmured without opening her eyes. We already are. Outside the window, Seoul glittered under the stars. The same city where Junwoo had once ruled through fear and prejudice. Now he saw it differently, as a place where his daughter would grow up, where she would face challenges but also opportunities, where the world was slowly, painfully, beautifully changing. He'd built an empire on blood and ruthlessness. But his greatest achievement lay sleeping in a hospital bassinet, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces, with her whole future ahead of her. Junwoo Park, the man who once said he didn't date black women, looked at his black wife and their perfect daughter and felt something he'd never known in 40 years of life: complete and unconditional peace. The beginning of everything that mattered had finally arrived. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.